Hello, everyone out there in YouTube land. Let me know if you can hear my voice. Let me know if you can hear the guitar. That would be very helpful to begin with. I'm just going to wait a few minutes to let some people log on and join us here, and then I'm going to get started with the lesson. The lesson is going to be about the Lydian mode, basically what the Lydian chord is, what the Lydian sound is, how to make beautiful music with it, not ugly music. We're just going to make beautiful music with the Lydian mode. So if anybody wants to get on the chat, let me know. You can hear my voice okay, and you can hear the guitar. Excellent, thank you. Okay, now the way this is going to work is I'm going to use the first 30 minutes or so to give you a lesson and go through all the Lydian material for you. There's going to be 3 PDFs and an MP3 that should be underneath here that you can grab, and I'm going to refer to them through the lesson. And then in about half an hour, about 4:30, I'm going to open it up for questions, and that's where I want you guys to go crazy on the live chat. And at that point, I'm going to answer those questions as best I can. I see Mr. Brad is on there. Hey, Brad. I want to give a shout out to Brad and Jeff and Ali and Tommy and Ren and the Easter Bunny and everybody else that works at TrueFire. Thanks a lot for setting this up. Okay, so I'm seeing a few more people coming on. I'm just going to wait a minute more, and then I'm going to get started. I see my friend Vaughn on there from Japan. Hey, Vaughn. So that guy says no sound there. Well, everybody else is saying they can hear me okay, so you may want to check your volume control there. That's a little bit cheeky. That's English humor. Okay, so let's get started talking about this Lydian mode. All right, so basically, the Lydian mode has a beautiful, haunting quality to it, okay? When you hear a song that has a Lydian sound, it's really dreamy. Some examples would be Joe Satriani's Flying in a Blue Dream, the Frank Zappa's Inca Road solo section, the song Dreams by Fleetwood Mac, which ironically has a dreamy feel. Who'd have thunk it? And then we have Answers by Steve Vai. Now, there's a ton of Lydian-based chord progressions sprinkled through popular music, jazz, rock, you know, you name it, it's in there, classical music. So I'm going to refer to a few of those as we go through. So what I'd like to start with is the Lydian chord sound, okay? So grab your guitars, everybody. And this is a major 7 sharp 11 chord, an A major 7 sharp 11. And that sums up the Lydian sound. I'm going to tell you the notes that are in this chord, okay? But first, you can grab the PDF 1, and you're going to find all the chords I'm playing here on the PDF, okay? You can grab that now. You can grab it after the lesson. You can send it to your friends. Okay, so this chord has the following notes. A, which is the root note, the bass. We have G sharp, which I'm playing on the D string, and that's the 7 of the chord, major 7. We have C sharp, which is the 3rd of the chord, and then we have D sharp. Now the D sharp's the interesting note here because that's giving us our raised 4 sharp 11 sound. And you can probably hear that this chord doesn't sound completely resolved. It's not the kind of chord you can play to your grandmother and then just walk away, because she's going to need more, okay? So that's an A major 7 sharp 11, and that has the Lydian sound to it. Another voicing that I really like, which is also on the PDF, is this one. And that's an A major 9 sharp 11. Again, very dreamy, kind of, you know, unresolved sound. The notes I'm playing are the open A string, I'm playing the note E on the D string, I'm playing the note B on the G string, I'm playing the note D sharp, there's our sharp 11, on the B string, and then finally G sharp, the 3rd, on the high E string. Okay, so that's the sound of the Lydian chord, all right? Now, obviously, there's lots more voicings you can use, but check out the PDF and you get 4 of them. All right, so that's the first chart, gives you that sound of the chord. Now, okay, so now we have kind of that sound in our mind. What does the Lydian scale or mode sound like? Okay, so here's what you need to do. If you have somebody else in the room, get them to sing a static A for the next 25 minutes. They don't need to breathe, just because we need that droning A. Okay, so just if there's nobody there that you know, just ask a stranger to do it. People love this stuff. All right, get somebody to hold that A. Now, if you play an A major scale over that, it's going to sound very melodic and inside, and the thing we hear all the time. Okay, and the notes to the A major scale are A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, A. Okay, we've all heard that's the first scale most of us learn, right? Now, to make this into a Lydian scale, to bring out the Lydian mode, all we have to do is change one note of that scale. We're going to take the 4th degree, which in this case is a D, and we're going to raise it a half step to a D sharp. So now we have A, B, C sharp, D sharp, sharp 4, E, F sharp, G sharp, and then we're back to A. Okay, now get your friend to sing that drone. And now you're starting to hear what the Lydian sound sounds like, right? So, for immediate musical application, obviously this is going to work over an A droning bass note, or your friend that's still singing, he can take a breath now, or she. It's going to work over an A droning bass note. It's going to work over an A major chord, an A major 7 chord, an A6 chord, even a power chord, right? Also a suspended chord, such as A sus2. Beautiful sound. I love Lydian, which is why I'm doing this. But anyway, so lots of applications already, and we're just talking about one chord right now. Okay, so if you go to the second, this is like a cooking show where I have ones I've prepared earlier over here. I have a nice brownie and a muffin. If you go to the second PDF, which I realize is backwards because of the camera, but if you go to the second PDF, you will find 1 octave scale patterns for the A Lydian mode. Okay, so basically, and what I encourage you with, it's okay to use these PDFs to get you going on it. Get this sound and get this sound under your fingers, and your fingers connecting to your ear, or preferably both ears. But I don't like to discriminate. But anyway, so find an A note and try and run that Lydian sound. Just think, it's a major scale with a raised 4. There it is. There's 1 octave. A, B, C sharp, D sharp, E, F sharp, G sharp, A, right? And then in the next octave, and hopefully, if you know your major scale fairly well, you're going to be seeing that, oh, that's just like the major scale, except I'm raising that 4th, a half step, right? Go to another position. Okay, let's take this A here on the low E string at the 5th fret. Now, normally there, you would play the major scale like this. Okay, do, re, mi, etc. But what we're going to do is we're just going to raise that 4th. So you just got to play a D sharp instead of a D, and that's all there is to it. A, B, C sharp, D sharp, E, F sharp, G sharp, A. And even just jumping around the scale like that, you can hear that Lydian sound coming through. Okay, So now we have that sound. We're hearing that sharp 4. You want to find other A root notes on the neck, such as, and from there, just see if you can play the scale without thinking, oh, I've got to reach for my tab, I've got to reach for my PDF. You know, just try to break the tradition and see if. See if you can do it in an ear training fashion and actually play it. Get your friend to sing that A again. Oh. Right, really, really lovely sound. Okay, so now we've listened to the sound of the chord. Okay, and that's an A major 7 sharp 11 or an A major 9 sharp 11. And then we found that if we take our major scale and we raise the 4th degree by a half step, we get the Lydian scale, Lydian mode, Lydian sound. Call it what you want. Call it Daphne if you want to, although other people won't know what you're talking about. So now we have that sound. Play that A chord or that A drone and try to run 1 octave patterns of the A Lydian mode. Okay, now for those of you that have just joined me on here, there's 2 PDFs. The first PDF has the chords that I was just talking about, A major 7, A major 9, sharp 11. And then the second PDF has these 1 octave A Lydian patterns. Although, as I've now said about 100 times, you want to try to rely on your ear to play it. You want to think about the intervals, think about where the major scale would be, and then raise that 4th degree. Okay, so far, just to recap, we have the Lydian chord and we have the Lydian scale under our fingers. Okay, so let's talk about something else that we can do with this. Now, this is all good and dandy if you just happen to be playing over 1 chord, but most songs have more than 1. So let's at least talk about 2 chords, okay? As well as the Lydian scale, there are Lydian chord progressions, and this is really the best place where you're going to hear the Lydian mode sounding beautiful and dreamy. Like I said at the start, Joe Satriani is Flying in a Blue Dream, Inca Roads by Mr. Frank Zappa, for some reason, Dreams by Fleetwood Mac. You know, these are all Lydian chord progressions. And what makes a Lydian chord progression interesting is that it's 2 major chords next to each other. So for example, if we have an A chord, okay, and then we play a B chord right next to it, that is a typical Lydian chord progression. Now, for those of you that are paying attention, I'm sure you are, you know, the bass note A stays droning through both chords. So again, your friend that's in the corner now is probably turning blue because he's been droning that A for at least 7 minutes. He needs to carry on doing that. Because that way, what you're hearing is the A bass note is making this chord progression a Lydian chord progression. And what I mean by that is, if I take away the A bass note and I just play an A chord and then a B chord, what you want to hear after that is an E chord, right? And so that is not an A Lydian chord progression. That is a 4-5-1 in the key of E, right? A is the 4 chord. B is the 5 chord, and then E is the 1 chord. By the way, if you're thinking, I wonder where he's getting those really interesting chord voicings from for these chords, there's a fantastic TrueFire course called Chord Navigator, Cage Triads, and it's presented very well by a handsome British guy. His name's Rob something, but I would definitely, if you want to learn these kind of voicings, you know, I would definitely check out that course on TrueFire. Right, moving on. So anyway, now I've lost my place with that shameless plug. But so if you have an A and a B chord, most people are going to hear E as the resolution there. So what we do to keep this in the Lydian sound is keep this static bass note going. So we have an A triad with an A bass, and then a B triad with an A bass. And it just moves back and forth between those two. The song Dreams by Fleetwood Mac, for example, much of that song moves between an F and a G chord, but never actually resolves to a C. It just keeps going back and forward. So that's what gives it that dreamy Lydian quality, okay? So a Lydian chord progression often consists of two major chords a whole step apart, okay? So in this case, an A chord and a B chord, and we're using the static bass line, the bass note, to tie those two chords together and to keep us in the Lydian sound, okay? Now, for your backing track, yes, we have a backing track as well. If you look under the video in the same cave-dwelling area that those PDFs are in, you're going to find an MP3. And it's basically these two chords, but I added an extra note to each one because I couldn't help myself. So we have 4-note chords. We have an A major 7, and then we have a B7 over A. And that's going to be our jam track for this lesson, okay? Let me show you what I'm playing there with those chords. The A major 7, I have an open A string bass note. I have G sharp on the D string, C sharp on the G string, and then E on the B string. A major 7. A, G sharp, C sharp, E. And then for B7 over A, I have the same droning A string. I have the note A on the D string. I have the note D sharp, as in dog, D sharp on the G string. And then I have F sharp on the B string. And we're going to play 2 bars of each. So as I was saying just now, I'm thinking of this as a 1 and a 2 chord in the key of a Lydian, okay? Because if you think about what a harmonized major scale is in terms of 4-note chords, the 4 chord is major 7 and the 5 chord is dominant 7. We all know that, obviously, right? But if we don't, that's what the questions are for. By the way, those of you just joining, I'm not going to rattle on for too much longer. About 4:30, 7:30 time, I'm going to turn it over to the chat for some questions about this material. But as you have the 3 PDFs and the MP3, I just wanted to go through what I think you should do with it, you know, and then I'll open it up for questions. All right. So we have, this is our track, okay? Now, if you listen to the track, oh, nothing happened. Okay, there it goes. So hopefully you can hear the track here. So this is an A major 7 right here, and then a B7 over A. And we're going to use those 1 octave Lydian mode patterns that are on the second PDF to make a melody over this. And that's all you have to do. You just have to make a melody that sounds pretty. All right, you get the point. So what I'm doing there is over that jam track that's just A major 7 and B7 over A, a Lydian chord progression, I'm playing 1 octave patterns of A Lydian. I'm just using that to solo with. And, you know, my ear is dragging to, when the B7 comes up, you know, that's where we're finding the D sharp, right, which is the third of the B7. So my ear often is probably going to target that note on that chord. But having said that, on the A chord, you can just play the D sharp as well. Because that's really a pure Lydian kind of sound when you take an A major chord and you just hit that D sharp. I really like that sound. So I absolutely encourage you to loop that jam track for about 14 days and without a break, no food or water, no. Play that jam track and, you know, figure out those 1 octave patterns of A Lydian. And you can use a PDF and just stay in 1 pattern at a time. This is something that I'm always banging onto my students about, and that is that there's a real tendency to run the whole neck, right? But when you do that, sometimes you miss the nuances of what the magic note is. And the magic note in this context, as we're talking about Lydian, is the sharp 4, which in the key of A is the D sharp. So I really want you to hear what that note does, you know, against the chord. So you're really going to internalize that Lydian sound. And that's why I'm not really joking when I say just have that drone. Just really hear what that sharp 4 does against the chord. It's a beautiful note. Okay, so now we've got that. I'm gonna walk into a dangerous area here. This is the area that enrages the internet trolls, and they come running out from underneath their bridges, because that's where they live, obviously, waving clubs, you know, and obviously. And so there's some confusion over whether you think of a mode as its own scale or you relate it to a parent key. I'm going to try and clear this up now in 2 minutes, which is impossible, but we'll give it a go. So in the context of this song we have here, which is essentially an A chord and a B chord, right? I hinted earlier that you could look at that A and B chord as the 4 and 5 chords in the key of E. So therefore, if you have the 4 and 5 chords in the key of E, could you not just play the E major scale over those chords? And the simple answer is yes and no. If your chord progression is A, B, E, it doesn't matter if you play those 1 octave Lydian patterns. You're not playing Lydian. You're just playing E major, okay? Because the chord progression, and particularly the bass, dictates where the intervals are and what you're hearing as home bass, okay? Now, luckily, in the context of this jam, we have our A major 7 over A, and we have our B7 over A, okay? Now, these two chords are tied to an A tonality because we have that bass note, and they don't resolve anywhere. They don't go to E. They just keep going back and forward. So therefore, you can use, I give you permission, the E major scale, if you know it well, all over the neck. And what's going to happen is your ear is going to pull you to those A root notes. And you're also going to emphasize the D sharps a lot, the cool Lydian note, right? Now, luckily, we have PDF 3, which is basically the E major scale all over the neck, 5 shapes. And inside those 5 shapes, I've highlighted where the A Lydian mode is inside that. Okay, and just to show you real quickly that it works. So here I'll play a couple of the major scale shapes, and you hear that it still works. So it still works. So you can just use the E major scale if you know it well all over the neck, and you can extract the A Lydian mode from that, but only if the chord progression you are playing over is based out of an A Lydian tonality, meaning the bass is staying on A or the chords are not resolving to that that's in the parent key. Hopefully that makes sense. I know that's the area where, like I say, the internet trolls start throwing stuff and getting very angry about that. By the way, if you need some help with the major scale and you haven't used it as the most melodic soloing tool that it is, I have it on good authority that there's a Foundry course being released very soon by TrueFire, by a handsome British guy, that is all about melodic soloing with the major scale. Now, this is a secret, so I will probably be assassinated for mentioning this, but I'm just going to put that out there. Keep an eye on upcoming releases for some major scale fun. Okay, couple more things, and I'm going to turn it over to the questions. Now, quick recap. We have the Lydian chord, in this case, the key of A major 7 sharp 11. We have the Lydian scale, which is just basically a major scale with a raised 4, lovely dreamy quality. And we can play it over a Lydian chord progression, which is 2 major chords next to each other. And we can extract that scale from the major scale as well. So all wonderful things. Look back over those 3 PDFs, jam with the MP3, and that's hopefully will all make sense to you. Couple of other quick things for you. A really cool way to get the Lydian sound, take any major chord, we'll take A as that's what we've been talking about today, play our old friend, the minor pentatonic scale, down a half step, and you're going to get, you get some of that Lydian sound because it contains the sharp 11. This is something Frank Zappa used to use a lot. What's cool about it is, if you're thinking about the key of A major, you could play A major pentatonic, which is the exact same pentatonic shape down 2 frets. Then move it up. So again, a really easy, quick way to get that Lydian sound. Take any major chord and play minor pentatonic a half step below it. One last way to bring out the Lydian sound. This is an obvious one for those of you, again, who are paying attention. We're playing an A triad and a B triad. Well, you can solo with an A triad and a B triad. Right? So you could actually solo over an A chord using an A triad and a B triad, which is really fun. All right, so let me just quickly put that back together for you, for those that may have joined us late as well. Major chords, major 7 chords, 6 chords, sus2 chords, power chords. All of this, you can use Lydian from the root. So if it's a C power chord, you can play C Lydian over it, okay? And then you have the Lydian chord, which is a major 7 sharp 11 sound, all right? The Lydian chord progression, which is 2 triads, major triads next to each other. And all you got to do for that is play Lydian from the root. So if it's an A chord and then a B chord over A, just play A Lydian. It's a beautiful sound, okay? And then if you want to take it one step further, and a quick way, as long as you know your major scale, to see that Lydian scale all over the neck, Lydian mode, is to derive it from the parent scale. So if you have an A chord and a B chord, that are not resolving, but you can say, where in our major scale are there two major chords next to each other? The only place that occurs is Kentucky. No, that's not right. The only place that occurs is the 4 and the 5 chords of a major key. So if we have A and B, the major key must be E. So you can play the E major scale, PDF 3, all over the neck, and you can pull out this wonderful sound. All right, so that's the Lydian mode. Check out the 3 PDFs, jam with the MP3. Tell your friend they can stop making the droning A, the A note now, and you should probably buy them a drink because they've been doing it for half an hour. Let's see what questions we have. Anybody? All right, let's see. A little scroll through here. Somebody's asking where the PDFs are. Okay, hopefully you've been able to find those. Let's see what else we've got. Okay, so my student Andrew said to me, if you're playing a Lydian chord progression and you just have these 2 chords going on, such as A and B, can you extend the chord progression without resolving it into E? And the answer is yes, you can. If you keep that, if you keep the A bass note going, you can play those other chords from the key as well. So for example, if you have a G sharp, a G sharp minor or an F sharp minor, you can pull chords from the key in. But most of the time, you're going to want to keep coming back to that A to make sure it stays in that A Lydian tonality. There's a real gray area with this. And this is why a lot of Lydian chord progressions, the ones I mentioned, Inca Roads, it's a C to a D with a C. Dreams by Fleetwood Mac, it's an F to a G. Joe Satriani's Flying in a Blue Dream is a C, C major 9 sharp 11, I believe, to a C sus 2. So a lot of times there's very little movement going on, often just a triad shifting up and back and up and back. And so that enables this dreamy Lydian quality to continue, so that we don't, our ear doesn't get pulled into another area. Okay, somebody just said, I just missed this crap. Oh, I just missed this crap. That's a very important comma, because evidently I just missed this crap is very different to evidently I just missed this crap, isn't it? So luckily it's the former, even though I read it as the latter. Yes, unfortunately you did miss it, but basically grab the 3 PDFs. The first PDF is major 7 sharp 11 chords, which is the sound of the Lydian mode. The second PDF is 1 octave, although that one is the second octave, 1 octave Lydian scale patterns. And then the third PDF is the E major scale, the parent scale, and the A Lydian mode derived from it. And the idea is you take the 1 octave patterns and the 2 octave patterns and jam with them over the jam track. And the jam track is an A major 7 to a B7 over A. And that's really going to let you hear the Lydian mode. Okay, now we have some questions firing up here. You can, and thank you, Mike Sachs there. Is your real name Sax? That's pretty cool. I'm a huge Michael Broker fan, so that's cool that your name's Sax. You can replay this whole lesson later. That's a very good point. I should have mentioned that earlier. So for anyone that's just joining us late, you may have missed some really, really great jokes or not, but you can go to the YouTube live link after, and it'll be archived, and you'll be able to watch the lesson again, grab the PDFs and all that. Hang on, we got some more stuff coming up here. Are you talking about slash chords? Yes, I am talking about slash chords in the sense that, this would be written as A, and then this would be written as B/A. A slash chord is basically a the first letter is the chord, and then the second letter after the slash is the bass note. Slash chords have nothing to do with this. That's something else completely. Yeah, so I am. Here's another one. My friend Von there. Is it possible to use Lydian over a single chord in a progression? Take, for example, the Thrill Is Gone. Can I use it over the G major? Let's see. So, yeah, the only problem is that with that, you can use it over that. You can use it over the G, but really, see, I'm looking at that as D major up to the F sharp 7. So your tonality is B minor, the same notes as D major. And so the Lydian mode is actually part of that key. So it's not really going to stand out that much. See, it doesn't really say, oh, this is a dreamy, crazy scale here, because the notes are diatonic, meaning the notes in that scale, B natural minor, right, or D major, those notes are in that chord progression. So yes, you could use it, but it's not going to jump out as if you were playing, for example, G major, and then you played an A with a G, and it was like, if you played it like that, G and then A with G in the bass, then that C sharp, the note that makes that G Lydian, is really going to leap out. So and that's another thing that a lot of the internet stuff gets a little confusing about, because people say, if I have a song in the key of C, right, and I have C major 7, D minor 7, E minor 7, F major 7, that 4 chord there, F, is the Lydian chord, right? So shouldn't I play Lydian over it? Well, yeah, you can, but you're not going to hear a Lydian sound, because that whole thing is just really C major, right? Because every one of those chords perfectly matches up with, matches up with the key. So you're not really bringing out the Lydian sound. If I had that chord progression and I played C Lydian over the C chord, then it's going to jump out, because that's outside of that diatonic set of chords. I hope that makes sense. So you can isolate a major chord, but you want to look at where you are in the chord progression. The G major in the Thrill Is Gone there is actually a Lydian chord on its own, so it's not going to have that kind of dramatic sound. I hope that makes sense. Okay, I can't see where the PDFs are. Okay, let's see if there you go. Then our good friend Jeff just said there, the PDFs can be found here, and he put a link. Thank you, Jeff. Rob, who is your favorite guitarist? Ooh, I'd have to say probably Jeff Beck, because seeing Jeff Beck for me is like a religious experience. The man has such control over the instrument. But there are at least 100 more I could name. Growing up, I was a huge fan of Gary Moore. Love Gary Moore. Steve Lukather, Larry Carlton, Wes Montgomery. I mean, it goes on and on. Eddie Van Halen, Richie Blackmore. I mean, there's a ton of players I could mention. I'm glad that makes sense. Thank you, Vaughn. Oh, Mike liked my slash chords joke. That's good. That's one person, so that's good. Does the bass player stay on A? Yes, the bass player is going to stay on A. They can walk a little bit, but they really want to make sure that you're maintaining that A tonality, because if they were to go to an E, it's all going to go wrong. So yeah, the bass player needs to stay on A. The thing to do is to say, look, to the bass player, I've got this great Lydian song, and after we play this, you can do this, you know, and give them something to walk on afterwards. But for the Lydian song, they got to stay there. Okay, hopefully these people are finding the PDFs now. Hello, Eddie Johnson. I am talking about slash chords. Yep. Okay. Here's another question. So if I play the Lydian, this is the Gaza. If I play the Lydian mode over the fourth chord, it won't say Lydian. That's right, it won't. Yeah, this is a big misconception about modes, you know. And you know, in some ways, it's actually better to think of modes as having nothing to do with the major scale at all, because this is where all the confusion comes in, the parent scale thing, you know. Yeah, if you're in a key of C and your song, you know, your song is C, F, G, right? And you play C major, and then you play F Lydian, and then you play G mixer Lydian, you're not going to hear any different. Everything you just played there, all three of those modes are just the C major scale. So you're not going to hear anything over that. The only way, if you have, again, I'll take that C, F, G, the only way you're going to get Lydian to come out of that is on the C if you play C Lydian, which almost sounds like The Simpsons. Right? And then in that sense, that's where you really hear the mode. There was a great somebody did a great piano. That's the symbol for piano, by the way. It's also some sort of Halloween dance. But somebody did a great piano tutorial on this a few years ago. Basically, the best way to hear modes is to take a static bass note and then run each mode from the same root note, right? So then you would go C Ionian, which is C major, and then C Lydian from the same bass note. And you can do that with the minor mode. I won't get into the minor modes today because I don't want to confuse the issue. But you know, and you can do C mixer Lydian. And then that way, that same bass note gives you the point of reference for each of those modal sounds. It's really the only way to do it. If you come at it from playing the corresponding mode relative to the parent scale or major scale, you're not going to hear the sound of it. And you know, I was doing that for years. I was playing that mode over that chord, and I was going, yeah, it's okay. I don't know why John Coltrane's so excited about it. It's not really doing much for me. And then I realized I was doing it wrong. So there you go. Let's see what else we've got here. Oh, my chat window's got very small. Why is that? Don't know. Hang on, let me see if we can extend that a little bit. Okay, I can't. There we go. All right, let's see what the hang on, my chat window's completely disappeared now. All right, here we are again. Let's see. Hang on, I just got to get back to where I was. So modes. Yeah, tell the bass player to save those licks for his solo. Well said, Jeff Shees. Well said, mate. So the modes are all about what you are playing over. Shayna and Jemmy, I apologize if I butchered your last name. That is a perfect statement. You get the award of the day. The modes are all about what you're playing over. That's very well said. That's exactly. If I can make 1 point during this hour session, that's the point I want to make. So well done. Anthony here, I've bought your cage course. Could you recommend, first of all, Anthony bought my cage course, so he must be such a great guy. You know, he should probably keep an eye out for the Guitarist Pentathlon, which is also on TrueFire, and the new course that's coming up. Sorry. I bought your cage course. Could you recommend another system for fretboard visualization? What do you think about, what does that say? I don't know what that says. 3 NPS arpeggios, maybe that means. The best, you know, for fretboard visualization, my whole teaching method is based around 5 cage chord shapes, 5 major scale shapes, those, and 5 pentatonic shapes. And, you know, I spent years learning exotic scales, hoping that one day I'd be in Turkey on a gig where I could play one of those scales once and it would be authentic. You know, I wish I had that time back. But when I finally really got the major scale down cold, and I do mean cold, in 12 keys, which my upcoming course, I can't help myself, my upcoming course will teach you. But anyway, once I got that down and was able to see, you know, the way that, I mean, for example, if you take a G chord here, I'm playing a C cage shape, and immediately I know that inside that I could play the major scale from G to G, but I can also see the range above and below, almost like a piano player thinks. I can see the arpeggio, right? And of course I can see 3 cage triads in there. I can see the relative minor pentatonic, which is E minor, right? I can see the B.B. King style blues box, right? And if I wanted to, I could literally solo over that chord, thinking of nothing except the chord tones, right? If you want to jazz it up or you want to do whatever with it, but you can even use it for country. That didn't sound like country, but it could have. You know, so the point being that to me, the main way to go about getting the fretboard down, I mean, you've got to get the notes on the neck down first of all. You know, I have an exercise in that course where I just take a new note every day, try and play that note on all 6 strings without playing any open strings. So if I pick B flat, right? Apparently I can't do it. Right? so pick one note and try and play it on all 6 strings without using any open strings, and then think about the relationships, you know, the octaves, you know, think about the fact that, oh, I know this is a C note because I'm always playing this C chord, so this must be a B flat because it's a whole step, you know. Think about, 12th fret B string must be a B, you know, so B flat must be just the note below it rather than counting up. And the more you make these connections, and then when you get into cage chords, actually think about root, 3rd, 5th, you know, or is it an inversion, you know. So you tie that stuff together, and soon you get arpeggios inside of that, and to me then you have the fretboard, you know. That's the way I do it. But to me, even arpeggios, if you don't have a firm foundation of the 5 major scale shapes first, the arpeggios are harder to see. At least that's how it worked for me, you know. Let me see what else. Would you make a... Hey Rob, how would you make a 1-chord song example? So what interesting? If you want to play out, what would you think on this approach? Well, I mean, playing outside is a massive topic. We could definitely do another session on that, you know. So basically, so what moves between a D minor chord and then shifts up to an E flat minor. The easiest way to get an outside sound, and this is probably, I mean, there's lots of exotic scales we can use for that, and I can talk about those another time because that's a big topic. But one thing I like to do is take a pentatonic scale. So if you have D minor pentatonic, for example, right, is actually just walk a half step in and out over it. Right, so you're literally running up the scale, D minor pentatonic. Now I'm going to go out, up a half step, back, down a half step, up, you know, up a half step, back, you know, and the trick with it is, it's just rhythm, you know, when you comp a chord, you know, and you do this half step, there's little half step moves a la James Brown. Jeff Sheets, I mentioned James Brown, I think you owe me money. When you move your rhythm up a half step or down a half step, I kind of think of the same thing as lead. Right, so you can literally walk in and out, and it does give you a little bit of a tension and an outside kind of sound, you know. So that's one way to do it. I mean, I'm a big fan of melodic minor, and I use it for everything. So that would be another way, you know, like if you know the melodic minor scale for D minor over so what, I would just do that. You know, I would just use D melodic minor over D minor. You know, oh, of course the flat 5 as well. You know, a lot of people think of the flat 5 in blues, but I like to use it in kind of a jazzy way. All right, so you can sit on that flat 5 for a long time as well. You know, so that's another thing I might do to do that. Can you change to the Lydian mode of a chord in a progression, or would that be a train wreck? Each chord in the progression. Well, you got to, each chord in the progression, you got to be playing over a major chord. Okay, I think I know what you mean. So yeah, that would be a train wreck, because you've got to think about what type of progression it is. You know, all of this stuff depends on the type of chords you're playing over, right? And for Lydian to really work, you want 2 major chords next to each other. Now, if you have 2 major chords next to each other, then you can play Lydian off the first chord and carry that over the second chord, and that's always going to work. But if you have a song that's changing key, I mean, like I would put Lydian on the 1 chord. Good example would be a jazz 2-5-1, right? Let's say you have, let's stick with our A major theme today. Let's say you have B minor 7, E7, A major 7, right? That's the go-to progression in jazz, the 2-5-1. B minor 7, E7, E9, A major 7. So on the B minor, I just pick out the chord tones, right? On the E7, pick out the chord tones, and on the A major 7, there's my Lydian, right? And the only note is the D sharp. Now, if you put a lot of tension on the 5 chord and add an altered kind of sound, which a lot of jazz players do, you're not going to get as much payoff, if you like, by adding that sharp 11 to the 1 chord. Whereas if you play more inside for the you know, so here's my B minor, here's my E7, and here's my 1 chord. So if you play inside for the other chords, the Lydian has more effect, which goes to the last question there as well about, could you just keep putting Lydian over all the chords? I wouldn't do that. I would find where that 1 chord is coming in, or if it's a Lydian chord progression, and make that chord have that Lydian sound. Because as soon as I started adding tension, to me, it kind of loses the effect there on the 1 chord, because I put that altered scale tension on the 5 chord. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. Let's see. Can you only get the mode sound playing over the root first chord? No, it completely depends on the chord progression, because I'm getting that sound. I'm getting more of the modal sound in a way over this second chord as well, because of the A bass. You know, as long as you got that A bass there. You know, and by the way, let me just say this real quick. This stuff, you know, everything about modes, you have to trust your own ear. You know, to me, there's only one rule in music, right? And that is, if it sounds good to you, then it is good. You know, now that has some problems. We've all seen those people that audition on American Idol or one of those shows, and what they're singing sounds good to them. So it's a sliding scale. But for the rest of us, you know, I like to trust my ear on these things. And you have to be careful when you read in a book or you know, a teacher or something says to you, you absolutely can't play this note over this chord, because I disagree with that entirely. You know, Charlie Parker, Miles Davis, there are no wrong notes. This is true. You know, so I'm never going to say you can't do that. But a lot of times you've got to be very specific with your rhythm when you resolve. You got to be very specific with the kind of phrasing you're using to make certain notes work over certain chords. But you really can't go wrong with, you know, playing Lydian over a major chord or a sus2 or a 6 or a major 7 or a power chord. That Lydian mode is going to work over all those chords. And better yet, if you have a Lydian chord progression. Now, one last thing here. Hang on, there's another. Oh, my good friend and student Ray Gallagher just said you haven't plugged your individual lessons yet. Ray, what was I thinking? So if any of you would like to take regular lessons with, thanks Ray. If any of you would like to take regular lessons with me, you can check out my TrueFire classroom, Guitar Babylon. Okay. And by the way, while I'm in plugging mode, you can find out more about lessons and music and all that kind of stuff. Going to www.robgarland, that's me, .net, robgarland.net. Thanks, Ray. Well done, mate. It seems I'm on the right track. This is the guy that asked about fretboard knowledge. I'm currently combining caged with major and minor pentatonic and blues scales. Yeah, absolutely. It's a slow process. It is a slow process. And that's the thing, you know, people get very sidetracked a lot of times, you know. But if I could give you one piece of advice that I know works, because I've seen it with literally hundreds of students, and that is that if you just stick on that path, you know, and a good way to do it is playing over backing tracks, jam tracks, because they're really fun, right? And you're actually expressing yourself, making music. To me, improvisation is like composition in the moment. I mean, I love it, you know. So just keep on with that, but don't get overwhelmed by the size of the neck. You know, I kind of think of it as like 5 little pianos in a way. You know, take one major scale shape, focus on that shape, and just try to learn that shape, make melodies in that shape, and then derive the caged and the pentatonic from that same shape. And of course, you can also now derive the Lydian mode, because the major scale contains the Lydian mode, which is kind of the point of the exercise, right? Yeah. All right, I think we've got time for another question here. Let's see. When you come up, composition question. When you come up with a chord lick or rhythm, how do you turn that into a song? That's a great question. I think what you have to do is, when you come up with something, you know, I love music theory and I teach a lot of theory, but for composition, I really prefer to kind of just keep my ears open and sort of, you know, whatever falls out the sky comes through, you know. And so what I would suggest is with that, listen to what you're doing. If you have a lick that you keep coming back to, or if you have a chord progression, you know, it could be this one. You could blatantly steal this one we did today, you know. Just put "Thank You, Rob" in the linear notes when the album, you know, comes out. You know, if you have a chord progression that you really like and you keep going back to it, and something keeps pulling you back to it, for me, that's what I go with. If when I pick up the guitar right before a lesson or right before I'm going to do a session or something, and I go back to something I've been playing around with for a little bit, to me, then there's a mental note like, this is something, because I keep coming back to it. I'm enthusiastic about it, and then I just develop it, you know. So, and by develop it, sometimes I'll just sit there and play the same thing round over and over again, you know. But it's good to record yourself when you do that, because sometimes you'll stumble onto something and you won't be thinking about it. And in my opinion, the best compositions come out like that, when you're really not thinking about it. You know, if you're going, well, it's Monday and it's 4:30 and I want to play a major 7 sharp 11 chord. I mean, that's all good, but that isn't really truly creating in the moment, I don't think. So just try to step back from yourself and monitor what it is you're playing. And if you're really excited about something, you're going to keep coming back to it and try to develop it, you know, record it, and then think about, okay, and then at that point, I might use some theory, you know, like for example, if I have a song, I'm going, okay, the song is in the key of A, right? And I need to go somewhere else, right? Well, then you could use a little theory and go, well, maybe I'll go to the relative minor, F sharp minor, but maybe I'll give that a twist and blatantly steal from the Beatles, which is always a good idea, and make that major, right? So here I am in my song in A, you know, which is like a 1-6-2-5 50s thing. This one's for Tessa, right? And then suddenly I need a key change. Well, I'm going to go, and I went to the relative minor, but I made it major, and suddenly there was a big lift, and I could hear strings and trumpets and angels. All of that came out, you know. So stick with what you like, develop it, and then you can apply some theory, maybe for a chorus or a bridge or another section. I think we've got to wrap this up here. Let's just see what else we have coming up. There's another couple of questions. What's that? I'm confused. Do I have to play every chord with the root note in the bass to pull out the modal sound? It's not the root note of the chord. It's a drone, you know, and you can still suggest it. If we just had A to B with no A in the bass, but it didn't go to E, that would still work. So you don't have to do that, but it's just a way of sort of like kickstarting our ear to do that. All right, one quick idea for future study, and then I'm gonna leave you all alone. What you want to do is take everything we did today, find the Lydian chord, play the 1 octave Lydian mode, relate it to the parent key if you want to, right? And then try soloing over a chord progression like that. Try that in another key. So for example, C chord, all right? What would a C Lydian scale look like? Well, play a major scale, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Now raise the 4, C, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C. You don't have to sing it like this because it's silly. And then try playing over a Lydian chord progression, which would be a C chord, and then it would be a D chord with a C in the bass. It's a lovely sound. It works in any key, obviously, you know. And also, like, you know, recommended listening. Go listen to "Flying in a Blue Dream" by Joe Satriani. Listen to Inca Roads by Frank Zappa. And while you're at it, listen to more Frank Zappa. Everyone should listen to more Frank Zappa. Dreams by Fleetwood Mac. You know, Answers by Steve Vai. There's a Paul Simon song that I can't remember the name of that I really like that has a Lydian section in it, which doesn't help you because I can't remember the name. Anyway, okay, so I'd like to thank everybody so much for tuning in today. If you enjoyed this, tell your friends to go online and watch this after it's archived, and of course check out the other TrueFire Live lessons. Hopefully that all made sense to you. If you have any questions, you can email me at rob@robgarland.net. And if for some reason you can't get the PDFs or the MP3, I'll just send them to you, okay? And check out my website, www.robgarland.net. There's lots of exciting things coming up with TrueFire. So keep an eye on TrueFire. And again, one more shout out to Brad, and Jeff, and Tommy, and Ali, and Ren, and everybody else. And I want to say thank you to you for taking a little bit of time out of your busy Thursday. I think it's Thursday. It is Thursday. For checking in with me. Hopefully you like the Lydian sound. So take that with you and go make some dreamy Lydian music. Thank you. Till next time. Cheers.